Last week, we brought you updated Dynasty running back rankings.
That's right,
This
baby.
week, we are bringing you our updated Dynasty wide receiver rankings. We've got 5 tiers, top 30 or so wide receivers. Do us a massive favor. Go ahead and drop a like on this video to show some love. Subscribe if you like Dynasty content.
That's right,
And
baby.
I want you to comment down below the most disrespected wide receiver in Dynasty this offseason. Maybe we'll talk about him here in a second. And hey, do you want our rankings? Do you want my rankings, Badake's, all your favorite YouTube content creators, both Superflex, one quarterback, best ball, redraft? Well, then go ahead and use our code LAND, L-A-N-D, at flockfantasy.com/land. Our code will get you 30% off your membership. Not only do you get rankings, but if you sign up to the Mother Flocker tier, Badake and I will grade one of your teams on a live stream.
That's right.
You'll get a DM to personalize advice from us and more. So, 5 tiers here. Why don't we start at tier 5? And I'll just tell you how I kind of broke down these tiers. My bottom 3 tiers, so tier 3 to 5, I actually think that those tiers from tier 3 to 5 are very close. It's just getting very technical in breaking down those tiers, right?
Yeah, I would agree.
So it's like with some veterans, some younger players, projecting players. Tiers 3 to 5 for me were very, very close, but I had to draw the line at certain places, and I guess I'm open for negotiation is what I'm saying with those first 3 tiers. My tier 1 and 2 feel very solid, but let's start at tier 5. Tell me who you got here in tier number 5.
Yeah, first guy I have in tier 5 is DJ Moore.
Okay, yeah,
Not sure where you have him.
So yeah, I have DJ Moore in tier 5. He's at like the very end almost. There's only one player who's right ahead of him, but like I said, top 30 or so. He's my wide receiver. What is it, 29?
Yeah.
Badake and I got roasted all offseason last year for saying he was way too high, and now he seems like decently priced.
Yeah, coming back.
The community's higher on us. So where would you have him then? Because he's my wide receiver 29. I think the community's a little bit higher on us.
I mean, I'm
still, probably a value, but
yeah, I'm still a little bit higher than the consensus. I would say personally.
Oh, okay.
But I have him wide receiver 23. I mean, I'm sorry, 26. So he's here in the bottom of this tier for me.
I think if I'm not mistaken, they have him like 23 or so. 20, wide receiver 20. So we're both lower.
Wide receiver 20. Yeah, for sure. So
look, lowest passing volume offense all last offseason. The offense will change slightly, but still you got to suit Justin Fields' strengths. But yeah, maybe we are too low on DJ. He's a tough one to kind of gauge.
Yeah.
Who else do you have in this tier?
Also have Deontay Johnson in this tier.
Okay.
Not sure where you have him.
So yeah, Deontay Johnson is not someone that I have ranked. And I actually don't have his image here, I don't think. Unless I'm missing.
No, you definitely should have it. Because I have him.
Oh, you have him?
Yeah, that's why
I'm
he's there.
definitely missing him then. Deontay Johnson, man. Where is Deontay? Okay, yeah. Okay. So yeah, I don't have him. This might be one that we're very, very different on. He's my wide receiver 37 in Dynasty.
Okay, and he's just on the edge there. So he's actually my last wide receiver here. So he's actually wide receiver 30 for me. Somebody that I really like. You know, coming in with Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett taking a next step. Yeah, I think George Pickens will probably take a big step as well. But his offensive line gets better. Kenny Pickett was really great the last 5 games of the season, according to PFF. I just released a video on Kenny. So I think I personally like Deontay Johnson. And, last year you were right. Deontay didn't have the best season, regression, especially with a new quarterback. But I think with another year under his belt with Kenny, I think it kind of results into more fantasy points and more success, I would say, especially now with Chase Claypool out. Once again, a better offensive line. So I like Deontay Johnson.
Well, I have a video coming out tomorrow called, basically buy lows, players that you should buy right now. And Deontay's on that list, which I was shocked that I actually brought him because I was like, this is the first time in like a long time I'm telling you to buy Deontay. I was sell all last offseason, but still I don't have him close to this tier 5. He's not close to these other players, but we'll just leave him there.
Yeah.
Because you have him there.
Happy to have a conversation still.
I also have, and I guess we'll have to find out where you stand here. I have Hollywood Brown in this tier.
Yeah, I have him in this tier as well.
Okay. Another player that I am bringing on the video tomorrow, so I'm excited for you guys to watch that. I think Hollywood Brown is very underrated at this point.
Hollywood.
I've got, and the rest of this gets a little bit difficult. I've got Deebo Samuel in this tier, and a lot of people might think that's disrespectful. I don't see it as disrespectful because, again, tiers 3 to 5, these are very, very close tiers. After the top 12, after really the top 15 or so, you can make a case for a lot of different wide receivers in different tiers. This is where I would have Deebo. I have Ayuk one spot ahead of Deebo. And that's just because Ayuk is younger and he was just as good in points per game last year. CMC has come into the 49ers and kind of hurt Deebo Samuel's usage a little bit. So with all those mouths to feed, Brandon Ayuk was still very, very good. And Deebo Samuel was kind of a little bit up and down. So I'll go for the younger player in Ayuk in this situation.
Yeah, and that's exactly the last two people that I do have on this list. Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel on the bottom here. So these are my bottom 5 people. I do have one more guy on here, but he's more like an honorable mention, kind of like wide receiver 31. That maybe I've been talking him up, but maybe I feel like I'm a bit too low on him.
Okay.
And that's Amari Cooper.
Okay. Sure. I mean, yeah, I don't have him. Again, I don't have him in this range.
Yeah.
We can definitely add him.
And it's not necessarily unnecessarily an advocation to the, hey, I think Amari should deserve to be here. I think we should just have a conversation.
Okay, sure.
Coming in, he was a top 10 wide receiver, top 13 wide receiver in the first half of the season. Obviously, with Jacoby Brissett, that was a completely different quarterback. Deshaun Watson, we don't know what he can do, and the success he's had with DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller, making them both, top 15 for Will Fuller. DeAndre Hopkins, a top 5 wide receiver throughout his whole career, paired with Deshaun Watson. Now, this is an older Amari Cooper, but I do believe this Amari could, sneak his way into the top 30, right? Top 30. I would even say top 25 finishing. Top 15 finishing in a dynasty perspective. So
I would say top 30 this year would be a big disappointment, I think.
Yeah.
Look, like Deontay and Amari Cooper to me are all guys that would be in my tier 6. And
sure.
I would personally have Calvin Ridley over Deontay and Amari. I would have Terry McLaurin over Deontay and Amari. I would have Michael Pittman, Chris Godwin over those two names, and maybe even Christian Kirk. I'm not exactly sure where I stand there, but these are kind of like stragglers for me because you gotta cross the line somewhere.
Yeah.
And
sure.
So I wouldn't have them in the same tier as these other guys, but to each their own. So you don't have any other players in this tier?
No, I don't.
Okay, I do have a couple other players in this tier. One would be George Pickens. And I love George Pickens. I don't think many people on YouTube would have been bigger on George Pickens than myself last year.
Yep.
And I was very excited about what we saw from George Pickens last year. I think he showed a lot of growth, and a lot of people misremember the expectations that people had for Pickens before the year. Because before the year it was he's not going to beat out Claypool.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think he definitely exceeded expectations, and I'm excited to see what he does in his second year. Yeah, didn't have the target share number that you wanted as a rookie, but again, I think that this offense is going to continue to grow. Pickens is going to continue to grow, and I prefer Pickens over Deontay in Dynasty pretty easily. And yeah, do you have anyone else in here?
No, that's it. I have George Pickens one spot higher, but I think that's maybe because of the age and the steps that I believe Kenny's going to take. Kind of the same thing with Deontay. I think they're really close with each other. George Pickens, obviously the younger player, with an expectation of taking the next step.
So the only other player that I have in this tier, and we'll just talk about it quickly, is Zay Flowers. It's not that I dislike Zay Flowers, but again, I had to just draw like some very interesting lines with these bottom 3 tiers because I really think that you can make a case for any one of these guys in a higher tier. It's just the way I currently view them and project them this year. And Zay Flowers, I love the talent. You guys know this. I've loved Zay Flowers all offseason, but I'm not so sure how he breaks out year 1 with OBJ there, Rashad Bateman, Mark Andrews. I'm not saying he's inferior by any means,
right,
but OBJ didn't come there to do nothing. And I look at all my players in tier 4, I see a pathway for every player in tier 4 to really break out here this year. And I'm not saying that it's I'm not saying that Zay Flowers cannot do that. I'm saying he has the toughest road, so that's why I have him here in this tier 5.
Okay. I have him in my tier 4. Not willing to argue, for Zay. All I would say is that he does have a tough road, but I think in the overarching scheme of things, I think not you specifically, but the fantasy community are a little bit harsh on Zay and the Baltimore Ravens and Lamar Jackson, and I think he is a little bit too low in some community rankings. But
sure,
and maybe
in rookie drafts he should not be past the 109, and he is, and that's ridiculous. And I totally agree. I'm just looking at him against these other wide receivers that we love. His situation is very tough compared to some of these other guys.
I definitely hear you. So I guess for me, the youth. The longevity with Lamar, whether that, I think that really helps Zay, and that's why I had him in my tier 4. But I get why you have him in tier 5.
Okay, let's talk about tier 4 then. Who do you have here in your tier 4?
Tier 4, I have Scary Terry.
Okay.
I don't know where you have him or if he's outside.
So where do you have Terry ranked then? Yeah, so Terry is a name that he would be my tier 6. But I'm very open and interested to learning about
about why. Yeah, look, right now he is my wide receiver 24, excuse me.
Okay.
Coming in, he's always been a guy that's always, I think this is the sweet spot for Terry. Every single year has always been top. He's going to finish top 15. He's getting drafted as a top 20 wide receiver. And I think, projecting him outside the top 20, like within that gap, 25, 26, 27, I feel really comfortable. I think he's going to return value here. So when you really look at him, he gets a contract extension. Yeah, it may be a little bit ups and downs with Sam Howell, but I mean, that was his whole career, up and down with Ryan Fitzpatrick, Carson Wentz, Taylor Heineke. Yeah. And I think he's going to continue to pick up where he's left off, and he may not be as consistent, but once again, the longevity, the history is there with Terry and being a top at least 25 wide receiver. So I'm confident having Terry in my tier 4. But I see.
I'm a little more concerned. I mean, look, Terry is getting, and look, I'm a Washington fan, so like for sure. I'm trying to be realistic with myself, and like I get where you're coming from, but I just think you're right. He's always had bad quarterback play, but to be fair, Taylor Heineke only had eyes for Terry McLaurin. Like, if Taylor was playing, Terry's getting like 9-10 targets every single game.
Right.
And I just don't know what to expect with Sam Howell. As crazy as it sounds, Jahan Dotson could be just as valuable maybe this year in redraft than Terry McLaurin. There's a very small sample size. It's not as if Terry was over-targeted compared to Jahan in that last game with Sam Howell. And Sam Howell could be one of those young quarterbacks who rushes a little bit more than we want them to for our fantasy wide receivers. Yeah. So given his age and still no real solidified answer, I'm a Sam Howell fan. I want him to succeed, but still I think there's a lot of question marks there. So I don't have him in my top 5. But again, you can, like, I have him ranked right by Hollywood, right? Yeah. I just don't have Deontay or Amari in that tier. So like for me, I would put Terry right by Hollywood, but anyway, I'm happy to leave him there. But yeah, I like Terry. Just a little bit concerned that he's not going to ever get that quarterback, and that is a little bit concerning. But why don't we talk about who else you have in this tier then?
Yeah, I also have Michael Pittman.
I don't have Pittman ranked.
You don't have him ranked either. Oh my goodness! Wow. Okay, which makes sense. I understand. But I guess when I'm looking at my rankings, I'm looking at the things that we know, right? And then obviously you know this as well. Obviously, the reasons why I'm assuming you don't have him ranked. AR-15, the question marks, what's going to happen, the longevity there. Is he ever going to get that touch, get that rhythm with Michael Pittman, because he is a mobile quarterback? But it's not necessarily that. I actually am believing in AR and Shane Steichen really taking over. We've seen the history with him, and it may not be this year, but it can definitely be next year. But I think Michael Pittman, in a dynasty perspective, as I'm drafting, I'm also looking for the future. So I have him in my tier 4.
Yeah, I mean, so where do you have Michael Pittman ranked? What's he?
So he's 24. He's right before Terry.
He's my wide receiver 33. Again, right outside. He would be in my tier 6. And I hear you. I have Michael Pittman in a lot of leagues. I like Michael Pittman. But what we know about this offense is truly nothing. Like, if we're being honest with ourselves, like, honestly, I don't think anyone can truly say exactly what the target share will look like. You're going from a team who really the offense last year was target Michael Pittman. Michael Pittman targeted consistently every single game. Well, now you have Anthony Richardson. And a lot of people want to look at Jalen Hurts and say, well, look, Josh Downs and Michael Pittman are all going to be relevant because look at what Steichen did with Jalen Hurts. That was year 3 Jalen Hurts. What did year 1 Jalen Hurts look like? How many yards did Devonta Smith get? How many targets did Devonta Smith get? Like, these were not startable wide receivers. They had some weeks in best ball you would have wanted them. But, again, I'm very, very concerned about the wide receivers in Indianapolis. Michael Pittman was surviving off of targets, and I don't see this offense now giving him 160 targets. I don't know where that comes from.
For sure.
So what, you're waiting for maybe next year Anthony Richardson improves like Jalen Hurts did an entire year, and then he's 26. I mean, I don't know. It's
also Michael Pittman's contract year, so after this year.
Sure, and it's a terrible offense to be in for a contract year.
Yeah, and he can definitely get moved or get bought low for another team going to a better offense. So, I mean, there's definitely opportunity for Michael Pittman. But I get what you're saying, right? What's going to happen. And I think that's what everyone, in my opinion, I think that's what a lot of people are hoping and leaning on with AR, not only from the legs, but hoping that he can develop with the head coach with the history. So
and he definitely can, but I think some people have an unrealistic expectation on that timeline.
Yeah.
That's I've seen a lot of videos where people are like, guys, look at what Steichen did with Hurts. Look at what the offense looked like last year. Well, that was 3 years into developing a quarterback. That was not year 1. You did not want to start a wide receiver with Jalen Hurts in his first year. And if you did, it was very rare. I mean, no one went over 1,000 yards. Devonta Smith was the best one. In best ball, it was okay, but you didn't want to start him in redraft.
I think a lot of people also say, Jalen didn't get the start until the end of that season, his first year.
I'm referring to his second season.
Yeah, so his second season, that was his first year. So that's essentially what we're projecting for. I think everyone else.
You didn't want to start a wide receiver in that offense.
Yeah, and we're not disagreeing. Definitely not disagreeing. But I think when you look at the young team and the talent and the quarterback and the talent that Michael Pittman, the history that he has done the past couple of years as a fantasy relevant wide receiver, you hope that can kind of continue in any way, shape, or form.
I just think the entire identity of this offense completely changes with Steichen and Anthony Richardson, and I think that really hurts Michael Pittman.
Yeah, I hear you. I think there's an argument and there's a way.
Let's leave them there. You know what? Choose between Terry and Michael. Choose between which one you want in tier 4, because this tier 4 is going to get really big.
Okay. I would keep Michael Pittman.
Okay. All right. So I'll just say a couple names that I have in here. I have Jahan Dotson in here. Brought him as a buy low. Around 7-8 days ago. You can watch that video, but very excited about Jahan Dotson. All signs point towards him being a very good wide receiver in the NFL. His reception perception profile is incredible. The dude can get open on every single route, and that's going to be very, very useful for Sam Howell. But again, you can't put him too much higher because of the questions around Sam Howell. I have Jerry Jeudy in this tier. I love Jerry Jeudy. Projecting a breakout for him. He is my wide receiver 21. So again, it's difficult when we look at these 3 tiers here, but this is where I would have Jerry Jeudy. I've got Jameson Williams here, a player that I love. But again, will be suspended for the first 6 games. You have to adjust slightly. I have Jameson as like my wide receiver 15. He's now my wide receiver 20. Slight adjustment there. If someone's willing, the next 2 names that I had on here was Jordan Addison and Quentin Johnston. If someone is willing to say, hey, man, I've got Jameson, I have Quentin. What if I give you Jameson and let's say a second? Yeah, I'll take Jameson over Quentin or Jordan Addison. But in a vacuum right now, Addison and Quentin are just starting their rookie careers, right? There's no suspension for them. So it's a little bit easier to get on board with Johnston and Addison. And the last 2 players that I have in this tier, and then we'll kind of see where you see it differently. And again, I love these players. Christian Watson. Christian Watson is my wide receiver 17, and then Treylon Burks, my wide receiver 16. I love these wide receivers, but again, those bottom 3 tiers, you can move them up or down however you like. It's just very difficult to draw a line between the two. So this is where I would have these guys ranked.
Okay. It's definitely a lot different. I'll just tell you how I have my tier then. So I have Jerry Jeudy, Jahan, Christian Watson, and Jameson Williams all in my tier 3. Tier 3 is the biggest tier. And
okay.
That's who I have. And then Treylon Burks I have down. I have in tier 4. I have James Winston Williams, down in tier 4 because of the suspension. But I have Jerry, Jahan, Christian Watson all up with Quentin as well. I forgot you had Quentin up there.
Okay.
Also Jordan,
right.
Jordan Addison. So it's a bit confusing actually.
Yeah, I'm trying to work that out.
Trying to work it out. But this is what I would say, so it's not confusing for everyone else, so they can have a visualization. The following names I have in tier 3, and I think they can, for the future is going to be really great. Christian Watson, Quentin, Jordan Addison, J-Mo, Jerry, Jahan are all guys in my tier.
So who the hell do you have in your tier 4? Like, look at this. Who do you have in your tier 4 then?
It's broken up. I have Terry in my tier 4. I have Zay in my tier 4. I have Treylon Burks, Michael Pittman there. I mean, those are the people that I have in my tier 4, and then it's broken up in that way for me.
Okay.
And once again, tier 3 gets bigger and bigger. Purely based on everyone else that is going to be there. But that's how I feel comfortable.
Okay.
Ranking these, and that's not in a particular order. I actually also have Jackson Smith and Jigba in tier 3, but obviously that's a disagreement for everyone has Jackson Smith higher or tier 2. I have him in tier 3 with Quentin, and my tier 2 is completely different when we get to that. So that is kind of how it is for me. Once again, a really really confusing because there's 2 different tiers, 2 different people trying to create one tier, but I think that's how I feel comfortable drafting some of these guys.
Okay. I don't really know what to do.
That's fine.
I was like an entire tier above.
let's just do this. I would say continue with your rankings, and I'll continue to bring in and fill in my thought process, because I think that's what's easier for people, because people are gonna get confused. We don't want that to happen. So just know that I have those guys up there. What you saw before, that's where I have them.
I'm curious how dang big your tier 3 is. The only other 2 names I wanted to talk about would be Devontae Adams and Cooper Kupp.
Mm-hmm.
Really difficult guys to place. Look, like right now, I'd probably place them right around here. I mean, look, are you in a win now team? Great. Then prioritize Devontae Adams and Cooper Kupp here. If you're not a win now team, then frankly, you don't want Adams or Kupp over Jeudy, over Addison, Johnston, Watson, Burks. Like, it's whatever your strategy is where you would rank Adams and Kupp. Because to you, if you're trying to win right now, or you're strictly all in, you don't have any futuristic pieces, maybe Adams and Kupp are a little bit more valuable. But to a team who wants to compete for the next 3 to 4 years, there's some serious question marks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Adams and Kupp, they're not going to get, like, they will never be more valuable than they are today.
No.
Adams is already in his 30s. Kupp isn't far away. Questions about Stafford's future. Who knows what happens with Jimmy G? So yeah. All right, why don't I talk about my tier 3 then, and we'll try and find some sort of middle ground here. In my tier 3, I have DK Metcalf.
Yep, I have him.
I have Stephon Diggs here in this tier 3.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at Adams and Kupp, there's just a little more stability with Diggs. Yes, he's an older wide receiver, but he has Josh Allen. Outside of Kincaid, there's really not anyone who's going to be kind of bothering him with target share for the next 3 or 4 years. And again, he has Josh Allen. There's a clear pathway here to be successful for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I have Tyreek Hill.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a 3-year. He's going to retire after his third. Like, maybe he does, right?
Yeah, maybe.
But still, he'll be like 31 after that contract. So it's not like this is unheard of. This is where I would have Drake London.
Yep.
This is where I would have Devonta Smith. And this is where I would have T. Higgins. So this is what my tier 3 looks like. Again, I feel very comfortable in exchanging most players up and down a tier.
Yeah.
This is just how I would personally view it. So how many players did you have in your tier 2 then?
I have the thing is I have a lot of players in my tier 3, and the conversation around those players in the tier 3 are the Devontae Adams, the Cooper Kupp, the Stephon Diggs, all the middle tier players that we don't know what to do, because in reality there are some times when you are building your dynasty team in your dynasty league, you're thinking, okay, when is the point, depending on how you're building, if you're building a young team, where do I take Devontae Adams? Do I take him where I can draft, a Drake London? Do I take him where I can draft a Christian Watson? Or is it Jerry Jeudy, then a Devontae Adams? Same thing with Cooper Kupp. I think for me, sometimes I just want to completely avoid those guys as much as we love them and as much as they can do a win now team for you then. But in reality, if you're not doing a win now team, you're never drafting Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp. I would even put Stephon Diggs or potentially Tyreek Hill now in that category, just because of you don't want those guys to be on your team for 3 years. You want the Devontae Adams that can be on your team, or Devonta Smith, that can be on your team for 6, 7+ years now, right? So the reason why I actually don't have those guys in my top 30, and that's the reason why. I understand
Adams
why but the thing is, I understand why they can be here. I think those guys are movable. They can go up or down wherever you want to put them. Okay. But the way I build my team, obviously this doesn't necessarily reflect personally for our rankings online, because I want to put them in the right value. But the way I would build them, I wouldn't put them in my top 30. I would put them out until they fall into value. So once again, that's just a different mindset in how people build their teams.
That's tough. I think these are still wide receivers that are going to get you a first-round pick in season. They're still going to be dominant this year in redraft. I think they have to be in your top 24. That's just my personal opinion. But,
for sure.
Okay, here's what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. Because I think our tiers are so drastically different, let me fill out the way I currently have it.
Okay.
And then let's have conversations around players that you see differently. And let's see how you have it. Is that okay? Because I think we're going to struggle to get through and try and agree here.
Yeah.
Okay, I would have Jackson Smith in my tier 2. He's at the very, very end. I would then have Amon-Ra St. Brown, Chris Olave, A.J. Brown, Jalen Waddle, Garrett Wilson. And then I'm kind of teeter-tottering with CeeDee Lamb being valued around tier 1. I'm kind of teetering there at this very moment. I know that sounds crazy, but if you look at the amount of targets that CeeDee Lamb got last year, young wide receiver, who did they add? I mean, Jamar Chase has T. Higgins, right? I mean, let's just talk about it. Jefferson's my 1, Chase is my 2. Jamar Chase has T. Higgins, okay? Justin Jefferson now has Jordan Addison. Both are going to be fantastic, but so is CeeDee Lamb. And who did they add? Brandon Cooks. I mean, CeeDee Lamb could lead the league in targets this year. That sounds crazy, but he genuinely could lead the league in targets. And he wasn't that far off last year. He had a lot of targets last year. I'll double check before I say exactly how many he had, but I think a lot of people are disrespecting CeeDee Lamb at this very point.
156 targets last year.
Yeah, so CeeDee had 156. Only 3 players had more targets than only 4 players had more targets than him. Jefferson, Adams, Hill, and Diggs. Mm-hmm. So I think he's deserving of being around tier 1. And then if you even look at per game, he was at 9.2 targets per game, right? The same as Stephon Diggs last year. So I think he is worthy of being in that sort of category. I'm not going to do that yet, right? But I just wanted to say that. I just wanted to talk about that. I think he's deserving. And if I'm honest, if Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase are off the board and I'm in a startup, on that turn, the only wide receiver I'm considering is CeeDee Lamb. So maybe he should be in like a tier 1B for me. I'm not sure. But I think he's getting disrespected, and I'm able to buy him in leagues at the moment, which is surprising. I don't think I should be able to buy him. And then when I tell people I'm willing to tear down from CeeDee, I'm getting ridiculous offers where I'm like, does no one really value CeeDee Lamb this way? So I think he's like to me, he's almost deserving of his very own tier. Right. But I've got Garrett Wilson up here. Again, this tier 2, I feel very good about all these wide receivers. These are my absolute pillars of my dynasty team. I would say tier 3, I feel very good about them as well. but it's just a different sort of confidence that I have in a JSN, in an Amon-Ra, in an Olave. And look, if you want to move Amon-Ra above AJ Brown, like fair, like do it. I don't care. This is why there's tiers. I'm not so stuck on exactly where the ranking is. But at this moment, I would prefer Chris Olave picked in the first round, going into his sophomore year, right? So it's what do you prefer? And I think Olave is going to have a great season with Derek Carr there. I think AJ Brown, to me, of any wide receiver in tier 2, might be the biggest sell this offseason, just because worried about the knees a little bit, and Devonta Smith was almost just as good at certain times. But anyway, this is how my tiers are currently constructed. Mm-hmm. A lot of names, a lot of players, but so who would you have differently?
So it's essentially
after looking at this.
Yeah. So after looking at this, essentially, basically what I have, once again, we view tiers a little bit differently, and the way I have it constructed is Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, CeeDee Lamb, Garrett Wilson, and then AJ Brown, all in tier 1. These are this is how I'm viewing, once again, my tiers. All of these guys.
Who else am I missing here?
AJ Brown. And, AJ Brown is on that. I would say AJ Brown is the guy that's on the edge for me to be in tier 2. Just like what you're just saying, the knees, he's probably one of the oldest guys in this group as well, that in this tier 1 and 2 group there. So I'm happy to kind of put him in different ways. But honestly, it's kind of pick your poison. Everyone is in a different point right now, right? And you also look at the quarterback play, you look at the longevity, you look at all those plays. And especially with one of the biggest risers, I would say, is Garrett Wilson coming up and getting Aaron Rodgers. I think that's also a big plus, and I think that's why we've seen him going at the turn as well, sometimes at the 203, 204, depending on how early somebody really wants to take Garrett Wilson, or some people taking Garrett Wilson, just after CeeDee Lamb. Sometimes the CeeDee Lamb falls to like the 201, and then Garrett Wilson comes. So that's how I'm constructing it. In my tier 2, Jalen Waddle, Chris Olave, Devonta Smith, Drake London, and T. Higgins. That's what I have. That's how I have it constructed.
No Amon-Ra.
I do have Amon-Ra. Did I not say Amon-Ra? Oh, yeah, I did say Amon-Ra. I do mean Amon-Ra, sorry. And then T. Higgins, and then Jackson Smith and Jigba is obviously next to Quentin. And then I have – it's actually down. So it's a little bit different in my tiers. But that's essentially how it works. Once again, it's a bit confusing. We do have different tiers. You can kind of see that reflected on Flock Fantasy, which is great. Sure. A quick little plug if you guys want to compare our rankings. But honestly, all these guys, once again, in the top tier 1 and 2, I would say, you pick your poison there. I think all those guys can be interchangeable in that tier, in my opinion, right?
So you have Drake London over JSN and Quentin, correct?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I do have.
Look, I would say the only thing that I'm not really on board with would be JSN that low, and then not having Jefferson and Chase in their own tier. But again, it's just maybe. Yeah. Again, I've talked about maybe Lamb being in there, but the way I'm using my tiers is always when I'm drafting. Like, if these players are available in this tier, would I draft them? And it's not like if Jefferson's off the board, then I'm like, oh, let's get AJ Brown. Like, I don't personally feel that way. But that's the only nitpick I would have.
No, for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
and once again, we all depends on
definitely see it differently.
How you construct your tiers. But I think for me, my tier 3 and your tier 4 essentially. Sorry, my tier 3 is a combination of your tier 3 and tier 4, obviously excluding some of the players, which sure. It's just a massive tier, which I think they all belong within that group. They all can finish as a top 15 wide receiver or higher, which is exciting, right? Like that's the exciting part. In the middle of the third, fourth, fifth round, you see these players like, oh shit, I want to draft all of them, but you can't, right? You have to pick one. So that's what's exciting about drafting and rankings.
Okay, well, I can confidently say that I don't think we've had a video where we see things more different than today. Hopefully, we were able to navigate it well for you guys. Mm-hmm. Again, if you want to see our individual rankings, you can see that over on flockfantasy.com. Mm-hmm. Do us a massive favor. Drop a like to show some love. Subscribe if you like Dynasty content. I want you to comment down below. Tell us what you think that we're most wrong about or what you agree with and we'll see you guys in the next video. All love. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy, even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.